we are in the third and final session of the cyber law. In the first session, we have discussed about the e-governance. So there are four components of the e-governance. First, we have discussed about the electronic documents, their admissibility, provision relating to the their admissibility and authenticity in the court of law. Then we have discussed about the electronic signature. We have discussed about the specific provision relating to the electronic contract, and in the last we have discussed about the electronic services. Then in the second session we have discussed about all the contravention and cyber crimes, and we have discussed so many case studies with it. So now we are into the third and final session, where again we are going to cover some of the specific and very important provision relating to the criminal trial, relating to the intermediaries. So just let me share my PPT. So an important information for all of you is that since the first session we are receiving so many questions, but again I would share with you that most of the questions which we are receiving, 90% of the questions relate to the electronic evidence and its admissibility. So we are going to hold a special session on electronic evidence, in which we are going to cover the advanced technologies, including the artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the deepfake as well. So you can join this session. This session is at the end of this week on the Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So in the today session, we are going to discuss about the pornography. Then we are going to discuss about the privacy and the provision which are into the Information Technology Act 2000. Then we are going to discuss about the liability of the intermediaries and liability of the companies. So these four segments constitute a very important part of the cyber law. So let us start with the pornography. So when we talk about the pornography, there are 5 terms which are specifically dealt with this particular aspect. So first is the cyber stalking. Then we have the sexual harassment, video voyeurism, transmission of obscene content, and in the last we are going to discuss about the child pornography. So when we discuss about the pornography, though there are provision under the Information Technology Act, provision under the cyber law, but it also there are important provision under the IPC as well. So we have combined two to explain you the holistic position, the position in total which emerges from the various acts. So first, when we come to the cyber stalking, the provision is section 354D of the Indian Penal Code. So this provision was inserted into the IPC by the amendment in 2013. So it's a very interesting provision, and particularly when we talk about the offense in the online medium, it is a very important provision. So first I will tell you a very interesting case about this provision, then we'll come to this provision. The case is of greater class, and there was dispute between the tenant and the landlord. So that was the dispute. Both are having the young children of the same age group. The son of the landlord has sent a friendship request on Facebook to the daughter of the tenant. She rejected him. He again sent the request, because in 2013 and 2012 there was no restriction on sending the messages. As of now, if you send a message of request, if it is rejected, you cannot send it again for a particular period of time. But at that time there was no restriction, and what the son of the landlord did, he sent again a request on the Facebook, and a complaint was filed in the police station greater class, and FIR was registered only on sending the second request on Facebook. So still that case is pending in Delhi High Court for quashing, right? So let us come to this section. What this section says? It says, whoever follows a woman and contacts or attempt to contact such person to foster personal interaction repeatedly. Right? Number one, despite a clear indication of disinterest by such person. So here the case of the complainant was when the first request has come, she has rejected the first request, which clearly proved the indication of the disinterest. So that's very important provision because on the internet this type of activity may seems to be a routine. But what could be ramification in the law that you can see from this section and the case which I was discussing with. Second part, which again has a wider implication, particularly in the information society. So second question says, whoever monitor the use of internet of a woman. Now, there is one practice which is being followed in the companies. They normally keep all their computer under monitoring. So, whether they all are committing the offense? So the answer is yes. Particularly in case of women, because this provision gives the remedy to the woman only and not to the man. So what is the bypass of it? So the only bypass is when the employer enters into an agreement with female employee, he should put that clause into the employment letter itself, appointment letter itself, that he will keep the computer under observation and the employee shall not entertain the personal data on such computer. Right? So it's a very important provision when we talk about the stalking, and particularly now we have seen that there are so many cases of stalking, particularly into the schools, colleges, and even in the society. Then we have the section 354A for sexual harassment, which equally applies to the online video. And I would say it's a very important section and even more important than the provision of Information Technology Act. So it says, what are the offenses which constitute sexual harassment? Physical contact and advances involving the welcome and explicit sexual overtures. Physical may not be possible on the internet, but logical may be there, so that would be covered. A demand or request for sexual favor, so that means any message. It may be text message through SMS, WhatsApp, email, or comment on the websites. So we have come across various cases where the fake profile of the woman have been created and they posted some mobile number or something welcoming the public at large. So that would be covered under this section as well as part from provision of the Information Technology Act. Making sexually colored remarks. So you will see that this provision is only under IPC but not in the IT Act. So that means if sexually colored remark is coming, then this section can be invoked, though there may be cases where there may be no remedy under the Information Technology Act. Next, and very interesting provision regarding which we will come to later on also because we have so many provisions on it. Forcibly showing pornography. So here I would like to add is even showing pornography itself is an offense. Leave a part of the forcibly. We'll come to that. Any other welcome physical, verbal or non-verbal conduct of the sexual nature. So basically I would say the definition of sexual harassment is very wide and it would cover almost every type of incident, every type of message which would contain anything with a sexual intent. So in fact, this provision is more effective than the section 67 and 67A. Now there is another provision regarding the video voiceover which have been added by way of the amendment in the Information Technology Act in the year 2008. And this provision says, whoever capture, publish or transmit. So there is a three component. If the photograph is taken, publishes or transmitted. So first I will tell you where it would apply. It applies particularly in the cases where the video camera is deliberately, secretly installed in the some bathroom, hotel room, clothes changing stores. So all such circumstances where a person expects a privacy, but some camera is installed to capture the photograph and transmit them. But what should be there are two rider as far as this section is concerned. The rider number one is the image of the private area should be taken. So private area means the naked or undergarment clad genital, pubic area, buttocks or female breast. So if the photograph is taken of this area, then it is a offense. Otherwise, it is not a offense. Second requirement, which must be complied and which is more important. Under circumstances violating privacy. So that means it should be at a place where a person expects a privacy. That means a person can disrobe himself or herself without being concerned about the privacy. So which are these areas? If I say this would be the area like a house of an individual, your washroom, toilet, hotel room. So that means this protection would be available to you at a place where you have expectation of privacy. Number two, the liability is on the person to protect his private area. So other way to look upon it is, if a person start walking naked on the road, can he claim the privacy under this clause? The answer is no. First thing is, you have to protect your privacy. Then only that you can avail the remedy under this section, otherwise you cannot avail. So what happened when this particular section was inserted way back in 2008? So many of you who are doing the criminal practice, so there were so many cases of transmission of the obscene content where the plea which was taken by the accused was that see the image, see the video, that this photograph is taken with consent. So the next issue was, if the photograph is taken with the consent, can it be distributed without consent, or it requires a separate consent for the distribution? So that was the issue in number of cases, particularly relating to the transmission of the obscene content. Then section 354C was inserted. So it has two components. The first component was, you cannot take a picture or capture an image of a woman engaged in the private area. Second, you cannot share the image so taken without the consent. So that part is not into the slide, that is into the explanation. You can go into the 354C. So now it has two components. Even if you have taken the photograph with consent, you cannot share without consent. So that means consent is again required for sharing that particular photo or particular image. So that means if you have taken the image or you have created a video with consent, it does not contain the consent for distribution. Now whenever you have to look upon this offense as far as the distribution of the image or videography is concerned, apart from the other section, you have to read it with the section 66E as well as section 354C. So this is another case which I was telling you, that a case was registered under section 66E of the Information Technology Act, because normally what happens, when the couple has a good relation, they may take the photograph. They do not object it. But later on, when the relationship becomes strained, right? So one of the party, with a view to take the revenge or porn revenge, they share these data with the other parties, public, right? So that means that now section 66E prohibit taking the photograph without consent. But if it is taken with consent, then sharing of it is not permissible, or it is prohibited, or it is an offense by virtue of section 354. So combining these two sections, you have a very important remedy. Again, I would share with you that the Information Technology Act provides a limited remedy as far as the pornography is concerned. Rather, IPC has the sections which are more effective, which are more broad, which covers almost every incident relating to the pornography. So whenever we talk about the pornography in the digital medium, we have to take into account the provision of the information technology. So this is another case. What happened? The doctor, when they were conducting the cesarean operation, so they recorded the video and then they share the video on the YouTube. Though their intention was to show about the cesarean operation they were conducting, their efficiency, their precision, but it again amount to capturing the image of a private area, and there were number of such cases which were registered against the doctors, and all these doctors were arrested. Now we are coming to the obscenity section 67. So this is a very important provision, and I would say this is the crux. You must be very clear about what is the pornography. So when we comes to the definition of the pornography, we refer to the section 67. So this is the content which have been taken from section 67. So it says any material which is lascivious or appeal to the prurient interest, or its effect is such as aim to deprave and corrupt the person. I'm stopping here, right? So it simply means that content should be which should arouse sexual thought, sexual desire, right? So that would be a pornographic content. Now the next line, which is a very most important line. Who are likely to read, see, or hear the matter contained or embodied in it? So that means who would be corrupted? The person who has the opportunity to read, see, or hear the material. I will come to this particular part. We have one very beautiful judgment on it and very interesting. But before coming to the next slide, another thing which we need to keep in mind, that pornography, as far as the law is concerned, is divided into two sections. Number one is the adult pornography, number two is the child pornography. You might have been heard, and it has come into the newspaper in a number of judgment also, that a person has a right to look into the adult pornographic material in his privacy. But no such right is available for child pornography. So let us first come to our judgment, which is a very interesting thing. So the fact of the case are that there was a dispute between husband and wife. Wife was residing with her parent, right? Husband sent a obscene message to her wife, and the message was received in one of the mobile which was lying on a table. Before the wife could see it, the father of the wife picked up the mobile, seen the message, filed the complaint with the police. Husband was arrested, sent to jail. Because at that time, section 67 was non-there. Right? Now, when husband came out of the jail, he filed a quashing petition in the High Court, and his case was, I have sent the message to my wife. I have not sent the message to my father-in-law, who is he to file the complaint. My wife is not complaining against me. How you can prosecute me? So then the judge stated, now what is the ratio of this judgment and what is the finding of this judgment? Judge observed that when you have sent the message to your wife, who was residing with her parent were in a position to read, see, or hear the matter. So, in other words, the crux is whenever the obscene material is being transmitted, anybody who can read, see, or hear can file a complaint. In other words, suppose in a school, a boy who is sitting on a front bench open his mobile, start looking on the pornographic material, what would happen? Every person who is sitting behind him, every person who can look into his mobile would be in a position to see the obscene content. So if he says, I'm looking at a pornographic material on my own, whether it is permissible, whether society can permit it, answer is no. So the basic law is whenever a person looks upon a pornographic material or exchanging a pornographic material, if anybody can see it, read it, hear it, he can file the complaint. So that is the basic crux of the law, because of which nobody in the flight, nobody in the bus, nobody in the metro can look on the pornographic material, because the same can be looked into by the another fellow passenger and they would have the right to file the. So when we talk about the pornography under the Information Technology Act, we have the three provisions, section 67, which deals with the obscenity in general. So all the obscene material would be covered within the meaning of section 67. Then we have the another provision which deals with the aggravated obscenity, section 67A. So that means if the pornographic material contains a sexually explicit act or conduct, so that would be under section 67. So that is the aggravated. Third section we have regarding the child obscenity, section 67B, which is one of the most serious ones. So we will come to all these sections. First, we have discussed section 67. Now we are discussing section 67A. The difference between two sections is section 67 contains the obscenity in general, but section 67 contains the sexually explicit act or conduct. Though the sexually explicit act or conduct is not defined under the IT Act, but when we import the definition from the other jurisdiction, it implies that the material which contain any act, where the any act relating to sex, or which contain any exhibition of your sexual organ. So that would include your sexual explicit act or conduct. Here the difference in section 67 is billable, section 67A is non-billable. Then we have the section 67B, which is one of the most serious offense. So before coming to, it has three components, right? When we talk about the child pornography, it has three components. That's the best way to understand. Number one, when any person communicates with the child about sex with a sexual intention or sexual desire, that is the first case. The person who is talking may be the adult, may be the minor, right? That is the first category. Second, when a person is sending the child pornographic data to any person, whether to child or adult, again, when a person is sending the child pornographic data to any person, he may be adult, he may be minor. Only here the main thing is the content which is being sent is a child pornography. It may be real, it may be simulated, right? Third, when you are sending a pornographic data to a child, and pornographic data may be adult pornography or child pornography. So these are the three components which constitute child pornography. So that is our section 67B. Now coming to the another very important thing is this section makes browsing of child pornography as a standalone offense. So that means if you have opened the Google, in the search bar, if you have written child pornography, you get so many results. Click on one, offense is complete, nothing more is required to be done. Now in COVID-19 period, COVID-19 situation, the Mumbai police has registered 133 FIR only on the browsing of the child pornography. So when we discuss this section, the first thing which comes to our mind is, if I am accessing on my Google, who is looking at me? Who is going to file a complaint against me? So let us come to this. first that we have discussed that the browsing itself is an offense, then possession itself is a complete offense. For example, if child pornography is found into your possession, so similar to the NDPS drug, the offense is complete, no complainant is there. And how the law enforcement would come to know that you are looking at child pornography? So let us have a very interesting case. So this is one of the cases where one lieutenant colonel of the army has been arrested by the CBI for exchanging child pornographic material, and see how he was arrested. He has sent he was exchanging the material with one of the websites. When he was exchanging the material, one of the router in Germany intercepted it. It sent the information to the German police. German police filed the complaint with Interpol. Interpol filed the complaint with the Indian Interpol, that is CBI, and this lieutenant colonel was arrested. And I tell you, complaint against more than 20,000 persons of the similar nature are as of now are pending with the different investigation agencies which has come from the foreign countries. So do not think that if you are looking on a child pornography, nobody is looking at you. You are being observed, you are being monitored. So this is another one of the case where one of the predator who has lured the boy in sending his own pornographic picture, in sending the pornographic picture of his parent, was apprehended under section 67B of the Information Technology Act. Behind that, only in the beginning of this year, 20% have been arrested in the Kerala on the same modus operandi. They were sharing some data with the foreign website regarding the child pornography. Again, it was detected by the foreign police. Complaint was sent through the Interpol, and all these 20% were being arrested and prosecuted. Now we are coming to the privacy, right? See, the concept of the privacy which emerges in the Indian domain has its origin to the one of the case. The case is Citibank Emphasis Call Center. So what happened in this case? In this case, this call center was being operated at Pune, and 4 employees of this call center stolen the data. Using that data, they transferred the funds from the account of the US citizen, bank account of the US citizen. Call center filed the complaint. All these 4 persons were arrested. Even the money was recovered. But then the question has come, what should be the responsibility of the call center? Whether the call center is permissible in saying that the data was stolen and now it is being recovered. In other words, tomorrow your banker calls you and say, your data have been stolen. We have filed the complaint with the police and now it is being recovered. Whether you would be satisfied? A question would emerge to your mind, how my data was stolen, what was your responsibility as a banker? Why you should not be under obligation to take the security measure that my data should be protected? So then this provision was introduced into the Information Technology Act. So we will come to the section 43A. But prior to that, I tell you, when we look upon such privacy law at an international level, we have the 2 types of laws. One is the horizontal, second is the vertical. Horizontal is the laws which are applicable across the industries, like Information Technology Act, which applies to all citizens, all the industries. Then we have the vertical laws like HIPAA, which applies to the medical privacy in US. RBI regulation, which applies to the bank in India. So these are the 2 categories of the privacy regulation. So section 43 has been inserted, and I tell you this is a very important provision, but we are not making use of it. If we start making use of this provision, the phishing fraud, the online banking fraud, the Paytm fraud, which are happening with you would considerably reduce. How? So section 43A simply says, if a body corporate like your banker, if your banker is taking the data from you, then your banker is under an obligation to put certain reasonable security practices and procedures. So they have to apply certain security procedure. And if they do not apply and there is a breach, they will be held liable. So under section 43A, one of the security standard is ISO 27001. Now coming to the something which you need to know about the privacy of the data. Why we require new personal data protection bill? Why the privacy is compromised and why there is no effective remedy? First, we have three type of data: personal, medical, and financial. In US, the value of the stolen medical data is 10 times more than your financial data. For example, for your credit card data, if the value is 1 rupee stolen data, the value of the medical data is 10 rupees. Though in India the situation is different. So then when we go by the Information Technology Act, there are rules which are renewable security practices rules under which any organization who is entering into an agreement with you, they have to publish a privacy policy. So whenever you create an account on Facebook, you create an account on WhatsApp, first thing what you have to do, you have to say I agree to the privacy policy. And in the privacy policy, these 10 factors are explained. Number one, they have to comply with these 10 factors. Number one, collection limitation. They cannot collect the data more than what is required. What would be the data quality? What would be the purpose of collection? What would be the use limitation? What would be the security safeguard or security method they are going to apply to protect your data? Openness, whether you can access and alter your data. Individual participation, you will get a opportunity to upgrade your data from time to time. And accountability, who would be accountable in case of breach. So all these things are required to be part of the privacy policy. But now one of the very most important questions, whether you have any discretion in saying I agree or not. So entire privacy law is based upon the agreement between the user and the website. But that agreement is always one-sided. Can I say to the Facebook that I do not agree with your terms and condition and you change it? So let us come to one of the interesting case of Delhi High Court itself. So WhatsApp was launched in the year 2008 or 9, and then they have published the privacy policy. Anybody who installed WhatsApp on their mobile would have clicked on the I agree button. And I'm sure you would have also done it. And again, I'm sure you might not have read the privacy policy. The reason is we talk about the privacy. We talk about the protection of privacy. But we never read any privacy policy, even to check what are the data which this website, which this application is going to take from my mobile, from my computer. But still, we talk about the privacy. It has become one of the big buzzwords. However, now coming back to our case, in 2013, the WhatsApp was taken over by the Facebook. So they come with a new privacy policy that whatever data we will take, we will share with the Facebook. Now, one of the person has filed a writ petition in Delhi High Court saying that WhatsApp should not be allowed to share the data with Facebook. Now, it was the turn of the WhatsApp to give reply. And WhatsApp has given a reply in the court. Mister, if you want to use our application, if yes, say I click. If you do not want, remove it. So that was the reply which was given by the WhatsApp. And in our law, there is no other remedy. So then what is the implication of this privacy policy, whether it is of any use? When you do not have any bargaining position with the website, then what is the relevance of such privacy policy? So, in fact, this system of privacy policy has almost crashed, is of no use. The fact has been admitted by the society, and that was the reason for emergence of the GDPR. Because the society has recognized, society has accepted, admitted the fact that individual cannot protect his right through the agreement with the website. So what is the option? Who will do it? The government will do it. Right? So then the new concept of data protection authority has come, which was implemented by virtue of the GDPR, and also in our new Personal Data Protection Bill 2019. Again, now we are coming with the same concept. Now this is the data protection authority who is going to bargain on your behalf with these companies. So now in this new personal data protection bill, these are some of the issues which have been covered but put with the jurisdiction. Now we have the extraterritorial jurisdiction. What is the meaning of data fiduciary, meaning of data principal? What is now the data, personal data is divided into three categories. Earlier it was personal and sensitive, now it is personal, sensitive and critical. So now there is a concept of privacy by design. Cross-border transfer of data, data audit, data protection impact assessment, data breach notification, penalties and criminal offenses, and in last you have the data protection authority, adjudicating officer, appellate tribunal, the entire new framework for giving you the adjudication regarding the personal data. So it's a very beautiful provision. It's a very beautiful bill which will give you lot of rights which as of now you do not have. Now I'm again coming to the one of the very interesting provision, Section 72. Section 43 talks about the damages. Section 72 talks about the criminal offense only on the very same line. So when you have clicked I agree, now there is an agreement between you and website, you and service provider. Service provider can be your bank. Now let us come to the bank because then it would be more meaningful. So bank is taking your data under an agreement, right? So here the bank is an intermediary which is providing you the services. Section 72 says, if the bank discloses your personal information to anyone else, then it is a criminal offense under Section 72A, which is cognizable, which has a punishment of 3 years. So what does it mean? Number one, in all the cases where the online banking fraud occur with you, it happened with you, then from where these fraudsters take your data, from where they get your bank account detail. When you are getting a phishing call that please tell me your OTP, from where he has got your bank account number. So this is leaked from the bank. So this is a breach from the bank. So in every case where the money is being transferred from your account illegally, the first and the biggest offender is the bank, because the bank has not applied the proper security. Bank has divulged your banking detail with the fraudster. In how many cases you have made the bank as an accused? So in every case, you should make the bank as an accused. The reason is, when you have not provided the account number, how the fraudster has came to know about your account number? Certainly, it was given from the bank. It was taken from the bank in any way. But no doubt, bank is one of the accused by virtue of Section 72A of the IPA. Now coming to the power of government under Section 69, first the power the government has to intercept your call data. So when bank is intercepting your mobile, it may be interception of the mobile data, it may be interception of the internet data. So when we talk about the mobile data, it would be covered under the Telegraph Act. But when we talk about the internet data, it would be covered under IT. So geo interception of calls comes under IT. Bharti, Vodafone, and the other service providers interception of calls comes under the general Telegraph. However, interception of the data, internet data packet which you are sending, I by either way of email or accessing the website, that would fall under the IT. So that is the first demarcation. Second is the government has the power to intercept the data for even any cognizable offense. But there are rules which are created which need to be complied. Then we have the section 69A which deals with the blocking of the website. But blocking of website, we have the very limited provision. Number one, it can be done to protect for the purpose of sovereignty and integrity of India, defense of India, security of the state, friendly relation with the foreign state, public order, preventing now last one is very important. Preventing incitement to the commission of any cognizable offense relating to above. So that means blocking can be done only for any limited purpose. And one of the power which is available for blocking to the police is public order. And there was one question before the Bombay High Court whether the pornography comes within the public order. The answer is no. So this provision cannot be invoked for blocking the pornographic content, though there may be other provision to deal with. Then we have the under section 69. In case of Shreya Singhal, this section was challenged, but the court has held that section 69A and section 69 are constitutional. They are not against the object which are set up in Article 9. They do not come within the they come within the exception of Article 19. Right? Then we have the section 69B. It applies to the situation which is similar to the COVID-19 when there is an emergency. The government has the power to monitor the entire data. So it has a similar provision in the IT Act when there is some spyware, something bug which affects the entire network in a country, which may result into the intrusion separate of the computer containment. Government can monitor any traffic. So that is a very open power with the power. Then we now coming to the liability of the intermediaries. First, what are the intermediaries? The simple definition of an intermediary is any company, any organization who is providing the services with respect to any electronic record to the public. For example, we are getting the services from the mobile company. We are getting the services from the Gmail. What the Gmail is doing, it is providing us service for our email account. Right? Then there are a number of other entities which are now covered into the definition of intermediaries. Your telecom service provider, network service provider, internet service provider, online payment sites, online auction sites, online marketplaces, and cyber cafes. So they have an exemption under the law. Now, what is the exemption? To what extent, or whether it is real or not, and whether it should be withdrawn or not, like what the Trump has did. He has withdrawn the exemption under section 230 of the Communication Decency Act to the Twitter. So similarly, we have a section 79 under the Information Technology Act that is similar to what the Trump has referred in his order against the Twitter. So first, let us come to it. Its provision is very simple. But you have a very effective remedies. In fact, we do not know what the remedies we are having. when any offense took place, for example, let us take any offense. Let us take example of pornography. How the offenses happen? Number one, a person has posted the pornographic material, that is the one part. Second, a website is publishing it, broadcasting it. Now, if we look from the angle of the offense, who has done it? So there are two parties, one publisher, second website. Publisher has the intention and knowledge. Website, though may not have the intention or knowledge, but the platform is used, so it is also liable for amendment. Right? So as far as the offense is concerned, your Facebook is liable. But law provides the exemption. And that exemption says, now let us come to three categories. Category number one is when the material which is being transmitted is transmitted through the framework of intermediary. For example, now I am communicating with you. I am using the internet connection of the Bharti. But here the role of Bharti is only to send the data. So in such case, whatever may be the offense, intermediary is not liable. So that is the first category. And I think we all agree to. For example, if I call you through the telephone and commit an offense, so whether the telephone company would have any liability? Answer is no. It is as simple as such. Second category is if some material is being posted, which is posted by the intermediary, right? So they have published it or they have filtered it, right? So what has happened in case of the Trump in Twitter case, that Twitter has put certain remarks on the message. So when the Twitter has put some remarks on the message, that means it has been published by the Twitter. So that is the law throughout the world. For example, if you publish any material on the Facebook and before publishing, Facebook check it, analyze it, and then only allow the publication. So that means the Facebook is a party to the publication. In such a case, the Facebook is done. So second is the second category. No exemption. Third, when the material is being posted by a third party, then only the exemption is available. For example, you go to the Facebook and you publish certain material, right? And it is being published instantly without any filtering by the Facebook. Facebook would be liable for exemption from prosecution because Facebook does not have any mens rea. Facebook does not know any such material is posted. But this exemption has two riders. Number one, when the material is being posted, when it has come to the knowledge of Facebook that some illegal material is posted, the Facebook is bound to delete that material, remove that material within 36 hours. If they do not remove, then there would be no exemption and they are liable to be prosecuted. So that's the one point which is very effective. For example, if some of the material of your client have been put in a similar way, and despite being informed they do not remove it, then you can make the intermediary Facebook liable as an accused. It does not matter whether the police files the charge sheet or not. You always have the remedy to make them an accused even at the stage of summoning, at the stage of charge, or at the stage of trial. So law provides a lot of remedies for that. Second is the Facebook is bound to preserve the evidence. That is another requirement. Again, because it is one of the requirements for exemption, so that means if the evidence is not provided, again you can make the Facebook as an accused. So in all the cases where the Facebook have not provided the information, you can make the Facebook as an accused. This is a very important remedy. Please exercise it. Do not give them the option to go away from our legal system. Number one, first, they do not comply with the legal proposition. Second, they do not provide the information. So if they do not provide the information, you have all the right to prosecute them. And even if the police does not file the charge sheet at the stage of summoning, you can make a request to the court that Facebook should be made as an additional accused. At the stage of charge, you have a remedy. At the stage of trial, by virtue of 319 CRPC, you have a remedy. Now coming to the fourth proposition. When the website is into conspiracy, involved into an offense, no exemption. So this is one of the case of Supreme Court, Sanjay Kumar Kedia versus Narcotic Control Bureau and other. There the NDPS, narcotic drugs were being sold through the website. So police have arrested the offender, police have arrested the owner of the website, but owner of the website claimed that they are protected under section 79 being an intermediary. So court have held that no. You know that the illegal material was being sold. You cannot claim any exemption under this. So that means whenever there is any website, the first thing to see is whether the content is a third party or published. It may be third party, still published. Reason is if it is a third party but filtered, analyzed, checked, authenticated by the service provider, like what happened in case of Twitter case, and that is the reason why the Trump is justified in blocking such material. So can you prosecute the intermediary? Yes. Number, they are liable for being prosecuted for abetment. Exemption is only subject to the two ground: removal of data, preservation of the evidence, and prosecution can be done at any stage. Now coming to the, so now there is an important development as far as the section 79 is concerned. In the judgment of Shreya Singhal, the Supreme Court has defined what do you mean by receiving the knowledge by an intermediary. So the court has held that it is not the case when any person say to the intermediary that this is illegal content removed. No. The information has to be conveyed only in two ways. Number one, either by way of the court order, second by an agency of the court. So that means even if the police inform, you can make that lie. Now coming to the liability of the companies under section 85. So I am telling you it's a very important provision. And here the liability is a strict liability, and in entire Indian law there are two statutes which provide for the strict liability. Number one is the Negotiable Instrument Act, where the liability of the director is because of being the company being an accused. Second is the Information Technology. So here, in case of any offense which is committed by the company, every director is liable, who is responsible for the conduct of the business, and it is burden is on the director to prove that he has no knowledge and he is not liable. So that's why this section has a importance. Second is regarding the other employees. So first was regarding the person who was in charge of the business. Second was the person who was the employees who are not in charge. So they would be liable only when there is a conspiracy, there is a connivance, and there is a neglect. So this is one of the provision where upon neglect you are criminally liable for the offense which is done by the company. So that's an important provision. So there was one case, very famous case, probably you might be knowing, Avnish Bajaj and State of Delhi, where the Avnish Bajaj was the director of Baji.com and was arrested because he was in charge of that particular company who has committed the offense. But what the police did? Police filed a charge sheet against the Avnish Bajaj, but police did not file the charge sheet against the company. So when matter went to the Supreme Court, so the same issue was decided by Supreme Court in Anita Hada and other versus Godfather Travel and Tour Private Limited. And the court has held that if the company is not being made an accused, you cannot make the director as an accused because the liability of the director arises only by virtue of the company being an accused. So if the company is not accused, you cannot make the director as an accused until director has its own role in individual capacity. So, friends, I have received so many questions, so many advanced questions. See, that as of now, the concept of cyber law has assumed greater significance and it has become very much wider. So it was not possible for me to cover everything into these 3 sessions. So now on the request of the so many participants who already more than 100 people have enrolled with us. So now we have launched this course where we are going to cover these issues in detail. So there would be almost 10 webinar. There would be almost 30 videos which would be shared with you along with one book on cyber. Then after the case of Voice Locker Room case, we have launched this course on the child pornography, and our endeavor is simply to educate the people, to educate the society in protecting our child as far as the child pornography is concerned. So, friends, you can always follow me there because we are now coming with number of other webinars. So, one webinar is on the coming Friday, that is particularly on cyber law for finance professionals. So, we are going to cover the area of the finance where the cyber law can be made applicable and how the cyber law could be useful for the finance professional, particularly chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretaries, and the management professionals. So these are my social media platform where you can connect with me, where you can share the information with me, where you can put your comment, where you can give your queries. With this, I thanks all of you, and now we are going to take questions from the participants. So now we have the so many questions. I will like only to give reply because we have a limitation of time. We will give reply only to the questions which are more significant. So the first question is from Bhavna Chaurasia. If anybody sexually assaulted a child, then this is come under which section? Can you please share the PPT? See, the section would be section 67B of the Information Technology Act. Then the another section which would be more effective is the section 14 and 15 of the POCSO Act. Second question is, if anybody take a picture without my consent, then as it comes under an offense, but the picture is not shared in public. See, just taking the picture as of now is not an offense. Third question we have from Dr. Parnam Kumar. And the question is, what is the complaint call number for child abuse and child pornography, and how a child of 3 to 5 year old can complain this hand, because most of them are close relative. See, I tell you, it is not so. The remedy for the child under the POCSO are much wider. Number one, they have number of legal right during trial in under the POCSO Act. The proceeding would be in camera. Accused cannot face the child. Complaint you can make it to the police. You can make to the special juvenile unit, special juvenile court. And another important provision is, if you file the complaint and police do not register the case, police officer is liable for punishment for 6 months behind bar. And there are a number of cases, particularly from the Bombay High Court and from Kerala High Court, where the police was prosecuted for not registering that. So next question we have again from Bhavna Chaurasia. If we find that our personal data breaches on the government website, so who is responsible for this offense? So the answer is, under the Information Technology Act, government is not covered. As of today, you do not have any remedy, right? But you can always invoke 406, 408, 409, depending upon under what agreement the data will take. Because under general law still you have a remedy. But under the new Personal Data Protection Bill 2019, which is still to be passed, you have the equal remedy even against the government. Though government has certain exemption, but still you have the remedy against the government companies, government website. So next question we have is from Mr. Jorawar Sandhu. Sir, you are talking about the complaint which comes from cyber tip line from foreign agency. Generally, they send a tip line report without a screenshot of the incident. They either provide the objectionable video sent or conversation which happened. They provide the URL of the culprit, which is obviously blocked by the Facebook. Then they provide the IP address and registered phone number. Generally, these kind of tip line come after 2 years from the date of incident. where this is all you have as a proof against the crime. I totally agree with that. Now only because of absence of evidence and time gap, it is not possible to prosecute. But I think with the time, these challenges would go away. And probably now the world is reducing to a very single small platform. Probably it would be possible to do something in the real time. But as on today, I agree with you on these limitations. Next question we have from Sri Rakesh Maheshwari. All the platforms use algorithm to promote some kind of material. Should it take away the injunction? That Twitter has removed some accounts of Sanjay Hegde sir, advocate Anand Hegde for violation of their privacy. Any view? Presently, the scope is limited to unlawful relatable to section 292. What about other unlawful content directed towards India? See, it's a very broader issue. In fact, we are going to conduct a complete session on it. The reason is one of the very important issue which you have raised is the another way to look upon it is whether a website should be given the power to decide what is legal or illegal, what is legal or what is illegal. The power which is either with the judiciary or power which is either with the executive part of the government, can the website be allowed to avail that power? So whether they would be allowed to say that this content is illegal or this is not illegal, or because then it then the discretion to favor one party or to favor another party. Another way to look upon it is that if the same content is published in the physical media, who will enforce the law? It would be enforced by the either law enforcement agency or the court, right? Then why on the internet, which as of now is a public platform, the these social networking websites should be allowed to dictate their own laws, their own rules. Once the exemption is being granted to the social media, and that exemption comes with the equivalent obligation that when you are granted, they are giving you a platform where the public is participating, then it is the public law of that particular country which should prohibit. Otherwise, what is happening? In broader way, if we look now, when these exemptions are given, these websites, these companies were very small in size. They were limited to one particular country. They were not beyond the countries. And now what has happened over a period of 5 years? They have grown to such a big size that they have carved out new territories from the world and created a new world. They are in a position by virtue of their narrative to influence the public and even to influence the government, and even I would say to change the fate of the government. So now we have to look on all these issues from a different perspective, and this is the right time for the new laws to come on this particular issue. Next question we have from Vaishnavi Borse. The question is, in many hospitals, the cesarean procedure is recorded and shared with the family. Is it not come under section 66C? It comes under section 66E. It is a criminal offense, but again, the word is without consent. So if the consent is given, it would not be enough. So that's the only headline. Next question we have is, if a person has possession of child pornography in the format of an animation or cartoon, will he or she be liable for prosecution? So very interesting question. First thing is, for a possession of child pornography, material may be real, material may be simulated. When we come to the real material, it only requires that there should be a child. Identification of child is not required. Complaint from child is not required. Whether child is live or dead, it is not meaningless. Whether child belongs to X country or Y country, it is also meaningless. So I am coming to real. Second is imaginary. Imaginary means even if it is in the form of cartoon, it does not matter. It is a equivalent of. Only in case of in United States of America, the cartoon is not covered into the child pornography, but otherwise in our country, not only cartoon, you write any material, prepare a sketch, image even some sort of drawing, it would be covered. So section 67B is very broad in that. So we have the next question, sir. What if someone has added me to any WhatsApp group that shares the child pornography without my permission and I have left from the same group? Will I be convicted for that crime? Very interesting question. So if we look from this boys locker room case where some of the defense of some of the child and their family was that our children have not participated. He has not done anything. He has not clicked on it. He has not shared it. He has not forwarded it. Both important. Once you are a part of the group, whether you are an active member, you are a non-active member, you are liable to be prosecuted. Only there is one way to escape the prosecution. Number one, if you have been added without knowledge, you come across, file the complaint, the burden is discharged. Even then, if you retain that data for the purpose of filing the complaint, that data you can retain by virtue of the POCSO Act, which allows a person to retain that data, which is provided under section 19 of the POCSO. Next question we have from the Jyoti. The question is, if anyone recover data and stolen data and then through which act individual is punishable. So if a person is in possession of the stolen data, then simple section is section 66B. Then it would be also an offense by virtue of section 66, read with section 43B. So in both cases it would be an offense. And again, if the data which is stolen is by virtue of some product of some breach of trust or some robbery, again it would come within a definition of stolen data, because the definition of stolen data is very wide, though it is not given under IT Act. Plus, please go through the IPC where the definition of stolen data is given. It says not only the data which is stolen, it includes the data which is taken by way of extortion, by way of robbery, by way of breach of trust. So it is a very wide definition. So then we have the question from Salija Venkat. There seems to be some contradictory between existing IT Act and PDB. Throw some light on this. See, I would not say, though there is a little bit contradiction, but that's not much here. So one of the contradiction is that if a person is possessing the child pornographic data under section 67B, the punishment is 5 years and offense is non-bailable. But if you go under the POCSO Act, the only punishment is 5,000 rupees. That is the one reason. And there are certain other, but I would say these are the very small contradictions. And contradictions are more with respect to the punishment. For example, for the same offense, the punishment under the POCSO Act is 3 years, but punishment under the IPC is 5 years. But still, I will say that both of the act operates in their own sphere, and both can be applied in most of the cases. And again, by virtue of the General Clauses Act, whenever there would be a conviction, the conviction would only be in one clause. Is showing pornography in cartoon form also an offense? Yes. Pornography may be shown in any way, in every way it is an offense. So with this, I thanks all of you to attend this session, giving me an opportunity to learn from your question, from your challenges. Again, I would invite you, all of you, to put as many questions, queries, and still I would say, if any area you think is still we have not covered, I would be glad to cover that particular area. And the another thing which now we are going to add is, there are a number of other people who would be willing to participate as an panelist. So now onward, the program which we are going to do, we are willing to include other person who specialize into these domain or a particular area, whether it may be technical area, whether it may be legal area, whether it may be relating to the traditional law, but covering the issue relating to the information technology. Please write to us. We would invite you as a panelist. We would like that the expertise you have, you share with the public at large, you share with us, you share with our organization, Cyber Research and Information Society, so that we can come with certain material, we can come with something which could be useful, which could be helpful for all in the society. With this, I thanks all of you for being with me